Hey out there, friends. It's your AP World History teacher, Ben Osborne, here to talk to you a little bit today about the Indian Ocean Trade Network. This one's not going to be that long, just because the main details we need to know for AP World, pretty simple, not too difficult for us to kind of grasp and gather. So we're going to kind of take our time here, but maybe not quite as long as some of the other ones. So in Unit 2, we have 3 different trade networks, right? So we have the Silk Road, which we covered in a previous video. Today we're looking at the Indian Ocean Trade Network, and we'll wrap it up with the Trans-Saharan Trade Network. Lots of similarities between these, but also a lot of differences as well. So let's check out today the Indian Ocean Trade Network, and let's talk a little bit about it. Let's take a look at a map first. All these trade routes I feel like are really helpful to see a map, just because, well, for obvious reasons, they are very geographically oriented. They are things that are moving across spaces that we have. So this is a pretty good picture of it here, kind of encompassing all of the details there. You can see a couple of things I want to point out here to you. One, it's across the Indian Ocean, but also it kind of goes into some other places as well. Obviously, the South China Sea there right below China, as well as up into like the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf and places like that too. So it's, connected to a couple of other locations. Each of these areas are going to have lots and lots and lots of different things that are coming across. So, Southeast Asia's got all these spices and things. Then we're going to have all kinds of stuff coming from India and other places as well. One other thing I want you to take a note of is these monsoon winds. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but you see how those arrows kind of come and go towards the Indian subcontinent? Those are monsoons. It's periods of rainy and or dry weather, and the winds that are blowing are going to bring that dry or rainy weather to India. So at certain times of the year, the wind is going to blow towards it, and certain times of the year it blows away, which means that the sailors who are moving from one place to another are going to be able to take note of those winds. Sailors love consistent winds because they can pilot around those. They can sail around those areas, and that is some of the most consistent that we're going to see. A bunch of big cities here that are doing this trading as well. You can see it all along the Swahili coast, etc. All right. Oh, I'm right here next to it. I'm in a boat, everybody. Look, I'm in a boat. Okay, growth of trade here for us. A couple of things that are going on the Indian Ocean Trade Network that are causing some of this, that are causing this growth. One is spread of Islam. So as Islam is spread throughout this region and throughout this area, it causes people to be tied together in a bigger way, right? Also, the caliphates are going to support this trade. So the Abbasid, as well as earlier with the Umayyad, are going to all support the idea of having some sort of trade. They want trade to take place. Remember, Islam is very supportive of trade. Another thing then is going to be increased demand. They're going to have specialized goods from Southeast Asia, spices from Southeast Asia, so lots of nutmeg and all these kind of things. Silks from China, cotton from India. People want these things. They've gotten a taste of them. In the case of the Europeans then, they've maybe sampled some of these when they were in the Holy Land during the Crusades. And so they are looking for these items. They want these items. And so this increased demand is going to lead to an increased amount of trade. Next up, we got state support. A bunch of these countries are going to support it. So just like we already talked about with the caliphates are big supporters of trade, we also are going to have others as well. So China, for example, while they don't love merchants under the Yuan dynasty, they will do this a lot, and the Ming are kind of off and on about it, but they definitely like making money for sure. In India, then a lot of the little kingdoms and things are going to support it. The Middle East again with the caliphates, and parts of East Africa also. So some of these city states that are over there are going to be big fans of it also. And then lastly, we have some new knowledge that's going to make it a lot easier to do. So one of which is those monsoon winds we talked about. So people had known about the monsoon winds for a long time, but they had been able to, map them a little better or understand them a little bit better. So that knowledge is something that's going to come in. Again, it's not like people didn't know that there were winds, in the 200s or whatever. It's just the availability, the study of those things is going to make it a lot easier for them to use. We're also going to have a couple of technologies, okay? So technologies like lateen sails and rudders, okay? So a rudder is something that you attach to the back of the ship. More traditionally, you would have an oar over the side of the ship that you would would use to sort of direct it, but it's inefficient. There's a lot of problems with it. It's very heavy, things like this. So the ability to put a rudder, put it on the dead back of the ship, and then connect it by like wires and stuff to like a wheel or something along those lines is going to be very, very helpful. Again, it's not like they didn't know the idea of a rudder. The key here is like a couple of small changes. Like the Chinese are going to figure out a way to make them a lot lighter, for example, which makes them a lot more useful. The other one, and a big one here for us, is lateen sails. Now I'm kind of blocking it here, but you can see this little boat that's right behind me. So you'll see when you think about like more traditional, if you think back to like the 1200s or whatever in Europe, or maybe the Romans, you're going to think about a square sail, right? But the problem with the square sail is that it can't catch the wind at various angles. So the most comfortable and fastest point of sail, not to get too much into sailing, is not from behind, okay? Because as the wind pushes on your boat, that's going to sort of make the boat do this the whole time. As the wind comes, it goes over and over again. It's a pretty uncomfortable way to travel. Also, you have to have the wind behind you, so if you want to go in any direction, it's very difficult to do that. You can do it to a degree, like you can angle those kind of square sails a little bit to catch some more wind, but mostly it's not going to be a ton. The change then is this thing that's behind me, this lateen sail. It's a triangular shaped sail. You can see at the top it's got this yard along the top that's, well, let's see if I can get this right. No, wait, there we go. This yard along the top here that connects it to the mast and makes it so that it's easier able to travel. It acts kind of like a plane wing. So like when the wind comes in and it presses up against the sail, it's going to sort of form into almost like a wing, which causes a lot more speed that you would not be able to get any other way. Okay, anyway, that's a lot of discussion about sails. Probably not something yet y'all are all that interested in, but it is something that comes up on the test quite a lot. All right, this will give you kind of an example of the connections that the Muslim empires are doing here. So in this period, this is about, let me see, the kind of darker blue there is about Islamic world about 1300. So you can see, again, like all these connections that we have. So Sultanate of Delhi, Safavids, all these other places, they're all supporting trade. They're all trying to help move it around. And they have a common language. They have a common set of understandings and stuff, which helps make it a lot easier. All right, what are the effects of trade? Well, a couple different things here. One big one is diasporic communities. That word comes from diaspora. Okay, so a diaspora is people leaving an area, basically, like in large numbers. The word usually refers, I'm pretty sure initially comes from the diaspora that affects the Jewish people after the Romans destroyed the Second Temple. They are spread essentially throughout the world as a result of that. So the thing is then that these folks don't just sort of disappear and go to various locations and then just 100% blend into the local area. Instead, they end up forming communities. So we have Jewish communities all throughout the world. If you want to think about this in like a modern day, like, when people move to the United States, oftentimes they will form sort of like ethnic areas of town. So Chinatown or something, right? It's kind of a similar idea. That would be an example of a diasporic community. Intermarriage and movement led to more people leaving these homelands. So we're going to start to see more and more people leaving these homelands and creating these new communities in various places. One of those in particular, like Islamic merchants will be in various places, Malay merchants. We'll see a map on this in just a second, or like a grid, I should say. Also, we're going to see a spread of religion through the Indian Ocean Trade Network. Islam in particular, but also Hinduism, Buddhism, all these kind of things, and other kind of cultural transfers. We also see the rise of new states regulating trade. It means that these areas are going to become more sophisticated, and that leads to new states, such as things like the Swahili city-states. That is this map that's right here above me. This little area right along the coast there is going to be a major area for trade, in particular like Kilwa here, and there's a couple of others along the way. Those are important cities. They're not organized again into like an organized civilization kind of thing. It's not a kingdom really, but they do have similar kind of trading rules and stuff like that as well. All right, here's an example. This is what I was trying to get to before. A couple of different diasporic merchant communities. We have Muslim communities. They're going to be in places like China, Indian Ocean, and Europe. They will produce products, or they will trade really products like silk, paper, porcelain, spices, gems, wood, gold, salt, amber, furs, pretty much everything in that situation. They are sort of in the middle of this trade network. So we also have Chinese merchant communities in Southeast Asia and very small amounts in Africa as well, more Southeast Asia though. That's true as well today. Like a lot of Chinese live in places like Malaysia, or there's some in Vietnam and places like that as well. Cotton, tea, silk, metals, opium, salt. Jewish merchant communities in China, India, and Europe, glass beads, linens, dyes, spices. And then Malays who are living in Sri Lanka, nutmeg, pepper, and cloves. Again, that's a big thing coming from Southeast Asia is the spices, nutmeg, pepper, cloves. That's where they're all created in these spice islands, and that is where they're going to come from. Here's a good example of some of that spreading religion that you can see there. Again, the different religions, Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism, etc. So you can see these things in various places and some of the spread at this time. But also look at that little, those little, what do you call them? Little lines there, right? Dense Jewish settlement. So those are locations where Jewish people settled. You can still see there are a fair amount in the Holy Land. But other areas as well. We have Ethiopian Jews, for example. There are Jewish people living in India. There are Jewish people living in Central Asia. So these are dense areas of settlement. Again, don't get it twisted, that like sort of circle area there, it's not like everybody there's Jewish. It just means like in each of these areas, in the towns and places, there's a sizable Jewish community. So we know that there's a fair amount of it in lots of different places. All right, last little bit here. This is Zheng He. So this guy's really fascinating. That's a picture of him up there. It's a drawing, obviously. We don't really have a picture of him. When I'm done here, if you want to, you can go over, I can't quite get my finger over there. You can go over to the YouTube clip there and check it out. It's a good little video on Zheng He. It's very short, but it's pretty good as well. So he is an admiral, okay, so of the Ming Dynasty. Now, he's unusual. He's a Muslim in China, which means that, there were Muslims in China, but it's unusual in the sense of for him to get this high into the government. He ends up becoming sort of a friend of Emperor Yongle, and one thing about him as well is that he's a eunuch. Now, don't want to go into too much detail on this, but eunuchs essentially are servants of the imperial house. They serve in a number of roles. The problem, though, with people who are in high-ranking areas is that they may sometimes have dreams of becoming emperors of their own, perhaps, right? So one way that the Chinese dealt with this was they employed eunuchs. Eunuchs are men who have had parts of their anatomy, their sexual anatomy removed so that they are unable to have children. So he could be in a powerful position because there was less risk that he would try to overthrow the emperor and found his own dynasty, because he literally can't found his own dynasty. So that's what a eunuch is. So what he's going to do then, he is going to convince the emperor to send him on a voyage to quote-unquote show the flag, which means show the power of the Chinese around the world. So he has these gigantic treasure ships, and he will travel all the way down to Africa. He's going to bring goods back to China, showed off Ming power throughout this area. Just real quick, by the way, the Ming, that is the dynasty that replaces the Mongol dynasty, the Yuan dynasty. They're going to overthrow them. It's also kind of interesting here because the Ming dynasty is sort of famously xenophobic. They don't like going other places. So for this very brief moment in time, we have this guy who's going to go on these voyages for the Ming, only to have that sort of shut down after the fact. So anyway, super interesting figure. You'll see a lot about him. He's sort of a Christopher Columbus kind of figure. Never permanently settles anywhere with these fleets, but he definitely travels into a lot of different locations. All right. Thank you so much for paying attention and listening. Again, that little video that's over there is pretty good. So if you want to check that out, you can. It'll tell you a little bit more about Zheng He. And looking forward to seeing you all the next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.